frequently in the Department of State of the United States has it for India that they don't like India. They're always coming up with anti-India narratives, anti-Hindu narratives, or they're trying to, blow up something small into something much, much bigger. I thought I'll take a look at who is or who comprises the Department of State. Some of the more important people there, and how many of them don't really like India for whatever reasons. And I'm going to explain to you some things here that will hopefully help you understand how politics is done in Washington, D.C. And I think India is a late entrant to this, and India needs to do a fair amount of catching up. Whether you agree with me or not, this is what I see, and you can feel free to share by way of comment. So let's start right at the top. Who is the Secretary of State? Anthony Blinken. What was he before he became the Secretary of State? He was working for West Exec Advisors, and I'm going to dwell into this in a little bit, but before that, what is his heritage? He is a Jewish American, and he is originally from Ukraine. So there is a certain amount of bias probably. I mean, I would say that if I were in that position, I would have a bias towards India, that it's a pro-Ukrainian stance, maybe because his grandparents or parents would have talked to him about what it was in Ukraine, how things were in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. So this is his backdrop. But he's been more or less okay. Sometimes he does take pot shots at India, but that could easily be explained as something that is pure politics. Also remember, guys, Pakistan has been the recipient of several aid programs right from the late 40s. For example, the CENTO, the SEATO, and so on and so forth. All these things, in fact, they got a lot of money when they were allowing US to move through their territory into Afghanistan when the Russians occupied Afghanistan. So all these things, right? Pakistan always got a fair amount of funding by way of grants or from loans, or they have had 20 plus IMF bailouts thus far, and I don't think even a single one really worked where they actually paid back the loan. So whatever IMF or World Bank gives to a country, typically that thing will find its way back into the United States. That's how these things are set up. There's no way around it. You can't argue with that. There are few countries who actually make use of it and use it completely inside, but that's like very, very rare. Most of the time the money comes back in. Now, it is possible that Pakistan, having had the benefit of having multiple people who are lobbying for them, they may have had some influence with the West Exec Advisors. Who are the West Exec Advisors? I got this from their website. They are a strategic advisory firm that offer unique geopolitical and policy expertise to help business leaders make the best decisions in a complex and volatile international landscape. Look at their tagline. West Exec Advisors bring the situation room to the boardroom. You can see that they know how to manage businesses, and this is primarily for big companies who want to enter into a new country. And in fact, if you look at their website, there is a special section for how to manage China risk. So they know, and they have people who have been familiar. They may have been people who have worked in various administrations. So for example, let us game this out. Blinken was working in a previous Democratic administration. Then Trump came in, so he went out. He probably was at West Exec Advisors. Now he is in Biden administration. It's possible Biden might not come back. Where do you think he's going to go back to? Same place, West Exec Advisors. And what is he going to do? He's going to gain upon or draw upon the experience from dealing with whoever it was that he was dealing with as the Secretary of State. Now there you get this networking and contact. And fortunately for them, countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, China, Russia, the leadership never changes. So you can just take off from where you left off. You just need to make sure that there are some things that are taken care of. Okay, now there is somebody else who's the Secretary of State. You kind of tell them, look, I'm going to do this thing. Is it okay with you? And the other guys say, well, it might be okay with me if 15% or something of that nature, and the rest, as they say, is history. I'm not saying these things happen. I'm saying this could happen. All right. Next, Victoria Newland. Deputy Secretary of State and Under Secretary of State for Political Affairs. She is somebody who gets mentioned a lot in India and somebody who's identified with a regime change, that she's constantly trying to bring about regime changes in various places. I mean, she has been accused of doing it in Bangladesh recently and many other countries, Ukraine, for example. That's her hallmark. So, where is Victoria from? She is a surgeon born to East European Jewish immigrants again. So she has some amount of backdrop, if you will, on the East European countries. So she knows them. And she's been known to be pretty aggressive. But like I said, if the group that she works for or used to work for, Albright Stonebridge Group, this I think is Madeleine Albright, they have these clients who are lobbying, who are telling them to take a certain line. See, you have being a lobbyist for somebody, and when you come to a position of power, clearly you will have to do their bidding. It's as simple as that. So there is going to be a certain bias loaded in a certain direction. Whoever it is that today is telling Victoria Newland, you need to make sure that Sheikh Hasina doesn't come back, it could be somebody from Pakistan. Because Pakistan always feels that they can control Bangladesh better if Khalida Zia is the prime minister there. You get the point, right? So this is, and probably the other way also is true, that India might feel better that it may be able to control the Bangladesh affairs if Sheikh Hasina is in power. After all, her father was the one that India installed as the first prime minister, Mujibur Rahman. Of course, he did win the popular mandate, so you can't say that that was a selection process, that was an election process. Anyway, you get the point here. So Victoria Newland has a certain amount of antecedents as growing up with Eastern European countries, as well as she's from Jewish parents. Who knows what kind of travails they suffered when they were in East European countries. I mean, the Nazis made a mess of it, okay? They made sure that every local population hated the Jews for no fault of the Jews. I mean, I won't say no fault, but it's again case by case basis. If somebody was an aggressive money lender, you have to deal with that part. Why tarnish the entire community? They were the best engineers in many countries. They were the best doctors in many countries. They were the best scientists in many countries. Don't turn away the entire race, is my point. Okay, next. Richard Verma, he was an ambassador to India also. He was considered somebody to be close to Hillary Clinton. He is a current Deputy Secretary of State for Management and Resources, and his parents first immigrated to the US in the early 1960s. Richard is not seen anti-India as much as he's not pro-India either. This is typical of most Indian American bureaucrats. They try to be more American than Americans in terms of dealing with various countries, especially of the country of their origin. I don't see that much when it comes to some other country people, and I'm going to come to that in just one moment. Who's next? Samantha Power. She is the administrator of the US Agency for International Development, and she was a journalist and she was a diplomat also, born in London to Irish parents. And Samantha was recently where? Uzbekistan. And who did she meet there? Well, you know who it is. Anyway, so next you have Linda Thomas Greenfield. She is currently the US Ambassador to the United Nations. She's also from the Albright Stonebridge Group, same one as Victoria Newland. And she was born in Baker, Louisiana. She's all-American in terms like, doesn't have linkages with other countries like parents are not. She's not like a second generation or something like that. Brett Holmgren, another person who's considered to be not very close to India or perhaps a little bit anti-India, INR Assistant Secretary, American intelligence official. He grew up in Minnesota with his parents and 3 siblings. Again, remember, these personally may be great people one-on-one, but they have a certain diktat. This diktat is being directed by the 2 people at the top, Victoria Newland and Richard Verma, who in turn listen to Anthony Blinken. There will be also some other dotted relationships with other departments, but this is the main power command structure, and I'll show you the command structure also. Another person who is much talked about in the South Asian subcontinent, Donald Lu, Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, United States diplomat. He was born in Huntington Beach, California, and is of Chinese heritage. Elizabeth Allen, Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. She's a political advisor from before, and she's a native of Buffalo, New York. Usra Zadeh, this is a very interesting person. She is the Undersecretary of State for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights, and she's also from Albright Stonebridge Group. She was born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to immigrants from Bihar, India. Usra's name also comes up once in a while as a virulent anti-India person. Now, I'm not saying this happened, but it is entirely possible that a lobbying firm, on, let's say on behalf of Pakistan or China, might be funding some of these positions, saying that, well, we will, essentially donate money to your organization as long as you put this person in the administration. And essentially then, the bidding happens from that point forward. These things are known to happen because remember that the officials here, they will be out of a job once the Biden administration moves out. They need to have another place to go back and hang their hat on. If Albright Stonebridge Group has Pakistan as a customer, as a client, then clearly they could have mandated that, well, we'll give you so much money provided you put this person in this job. And then the lobbying happens. I mean, when the administration gets formed, a lot of, calling of favors takes place. Oh, I helped you beat Trump in this particular county of this particular state. Therefore, now I need this thing in return. You get the idea, right? Next one, another more very colorful person, Rashad Hussein, U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom. This is another voice that keeps piping up along with USCIRF. He's an American attorney, he's a diplomat, he is the son of Indian American immigrants. So you get an idea, right? These are some of the people that I know of, but there are also more things. So this is not all. The United States Department of State has many other positions with many other people working there. But what I am showing you here are people who are considered to be not very friendly towards India. So whether it's by design or because somebody had paid the piper, so to say, somebody had essentially some access to the Biden administration saying that we did this for you, in exchange we want you to do this for us. And then once that person that they want becomes put in that position, then it is probably easy to go and call favors and say to that person also, look, I did this for you, you are nobody, I got you a job into this one, I'm paying your bill. So, it could be something as innocent as meeting at a social event. But things get changed, diktats come down. All these things are happening. What is it that India needs to do here? Pakistan, it is rumored that they have 400 lobbying firms working for them in the Washington, D.C. area. 400. This was Tariq Singh Fateh's estimate. I don't know whether it's true or not. Let us say there are only 40. Even 40 is one too many. How many does India have? I have no clue. But as far as I can tell, it is not more than a handful. And I don't even know the names. There are a lot of political action committees that have just recently been formed of Indian Americans. But that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about full-time lobbyists. A lobbyist is somebody who has been a congressman, a senator, or a secretary of some position or the other. Essentially somebody who can pick up the call and talk to somebody across the aisle and say, hey, listen, buddy, I just wanted to talk to you about this, and so on and so forth. I don't know how many people India has. And that's where India needs to really, really focus on. I think this is something that is high time now. Otherwise, what will happen is the rhetoric and the lies that the others spread. For example, one senator now is trying to bring a resolution in the Senate condemning India for its treatment of minorities. Look how much of a lie that is. If this person is influential and she knows how to call favors, she might even get the majority of the senators to vote for her. See, this is the thing that a lobbyist working for India would head off with proof. I mean, P. Gurus can do it, but P. Gurus is not a lobbyist. We don't have access. That's where the problem is. Unless somebody from the Senate's office of any of those senators, unless they come to know, or if one of you forward this to that particular senator who might be considering supporting that bill, they will not come to know. So it's also important for all of you viewers, especially based in the United States. You can forward some of these emails or some of these videos to your senator or your congressman, congresswoman, and tell them that you are concerned that you would be voting for a lie, and be very vocal about it. That is the most important thing. It's not important for you to have your picture taken with a certain senator or a congressman. That's peanuts. That's not really it. What is influence is, if you pay for a plate of dinner, make sure you have a list of questions or a list of action items. Take a couple of copies, and when you're talking to that person, make sure that the person's aide gets your copy, take their card so that you can follow up with them. That is what is needed. A picture, it's okay. That's not what it is. It is access. That's what you get when you go for some of these per plate $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 dinners and so on and so forth. Thanks for watching P Gurus, and please subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so. Please like this video, and also if you don't mind, please click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.